I am not a feminist. I said what I said and I meant what I said. Hi guys, welcome back. So today I'm here to tell you that I am not a feminist and neither are you. You're probably thinking, how dare you? How dare you tell me that I can't be what? Or support a movement that I want to? And you're absolutely right. That's why I'm not a feminist. Because I'm here to tell you you're not. That don't make sense, does it? There was a time when I thought being a feminist was so obvious. Like, I think Maya Angelou said this. She said, I've been a woman for so long, it would be stupid not to be on my own side. And I 100% agree with her, which is why I am not a feminist. But before I go into why I'm not and why I'm trying to police you and tell you you're not a feminist, we're going to go through the different waves of feminism, what they were all about, before we get really into it. So what are the different waves of feminism? Well, there's three or four different stages that feminism has gone through. So the first wave, so like I guess the very beginning of feminism, was with the whole voting for women's rights and, you know, stuff like that, and, you know, the lovely suffragette movement. So that's basically the first wave. And then the second wave was the whole right to work, reproductive rights, like that type of stuff, I believe. And then the third wave was the whole stuff on rape culture, sexual harassment, body shaming. So like I think third wave is like modern feminism-ish. And then there's the fourth wave, which I'm not really sure if it properly exists, but it's the whole idea of feminism through technology. And it's where we start seeing stuff like #MeToo and stuff like that. So that's the different ways of feminism. Now, on the surface, that sounds wonderful. Like they're putting their lives on the line so women can have all these rights and all these opportunities. What's the problem? Well, my problem with it is that whilst they were doing all these wonderful things, claiming it was for the rights of women, they were adding to the oppression of other women as well. Ironic, right? So they were fighting for women whilst fighting other women. But before we go into what's happening now, we're going to go back to the different ways of feminism, and I'm going to point out my issue with them. So the first wave of feminism began in the mid-19th century. And when you think about that time, yeah, there's only one group of women that would have been able to have the opportunity and the time to sit down, have a cup of tea and talk about how, yeah, I want to earn more money, I want to be able to vote. Because as far as I'm concerned, there were still women trying to just stay alive in that period. So, speaking of which, the first convention for the whole feminist movement was in 1848. And in that convention, there were 240 attendees. And when you break it down, you start to see how the roots of feminism have always been problematic. So out of the 240 participants, 200 of them were women, but they were white women. 39 of them were white men, and one of the people attending was a person of color, and it was a black man. So hold on, I thought feminism was about equality for all women. Where were the rest of the women? So you had a conference discussing the rights that were supposed to be for all women, yet where were the black women? Where were the Latina women? Where were the Asian women? Where were the LGBTQ community? And it's not that they didn't want to go, it's that they were excluded, and this is still happening today, but I need to slow down. Anyway, so we move on to the second wave of feminism, which was all about the reproductive rights stuff. And whilst they were fighting for that, do you know that I can't remember the exact details, but black women were used by this white doctor to experiment on, and yeah, like there was a lot of messed up stuff happening with regards to the reproductive rights of black women. Yeah, the whole second wave of feminism focused on white women with regards to reproductive rights. So the people that were facing the most crap were completely ignored in this whole fight. And then we move on to the third wave of feminism. I'm going to combine third and fourth with the whole Me Too and the sexual harassment stuff and domestic abuse and stuff like that. And again, black women have higher statistics of domestic abuse and harassment than any other group of women. Yet the movement was so focused on white women. And with the Me Too movement, okay, before I reveal this, when you think of hashtag Me Too, what do you think of? Because I don't know about you, but when I first heard about it, the images that comes to my mind are white women, not just any white women in Hollywood, because I think it was around the time when the whole Harvey Weinstein or whatever his surname is, because do you know what, a lot of white people don't try to learn how to pronounce our surnames and middle names correctly, so I'm not about to go and Google how to pronounce this man's surname, especially when it's someone like him. But it was around that time, so the focus switched very quickly to what was going on with Hollywood women. And there's nothing wrong with that because they deserve to have their voice heard as well. But the issue comes when black women and other minorities were erased. And the worst thing about it was that this movement was started by a black woman. They started this, yeah, when you think of the Me Too movement, it's a white woman you think of. It just makes no sense. And then, you know how Times Magazine, every year they release like most influential people list, and that particular year they were focusing on the whole Me Too movement thing, and the front cover was full of white women, and I think there was like one black woman. They faced a lot of backlash because they were speaking about the Me Too movement but didn't include the person who started it, the black woman known as Tarana Burke. So the person who allowed us to be able to have this voice on a social global scale was completely erased and ignored in a magazine that was focusing on that whole movement. So the point of me going through the different waves and then going through them again is so you can see that from the very beginning, feminism has always had its problems. The roots of feminism itself are, like, you know, even the original feminist leaders were not feminists, because how can the idea of feminism, which is about fighting for the equality of all women, then turn around and ignore all women except for white women? And it's not just white women, it focused on upper class or middle class white women. So it was the intentions of feminism were never what it claims to be. So put simply, and I don't know if this is too much of a reach, but the origin of feminism was because these white women saw that their uber rich husbands were the only ones getting the coins. So they decided, you know what, I want to get my bag as well, so let's start a movement and call it a fight for all women, but really we just want to be able to be as rich as our husbands. Because like I said earlier, at that time black women would not have had the time to be sitting there saying I want a fair wage. We were more concerned, and still are more concerned, about just staying alive, to be honest. So yeah, like looking at the whole origin of feminism, that's why I cannot call myself a feminist. And I feel like the people who call themselves feminists now, if you have the true intentions but you're looking at the origin and the leaders of the original whole feminist movement as your inspiration or whatever, you can't really call yourself a feminist then, because they were doing it very, very wrong. And now going back to the whole suffragettes, yeah, our beloved suffragettes who fought for all our rights, hashtag women power, I don't like them, and you shouldn't like them either, because they were problematic AF. Firstly, when they had I think it was one of the famous voting right marches in Washington DC when was it? It was in 1913. They demanded that black women and women of colour should stay at the back of the march. Yeah. That sounds familiar, doesn't it? Because it still happens now. White women are constantly pushing women of colour and black women to the back, to the, what's the word? Back burner? To the back bench? What's the word? They're constantly pushing black voices to the back, propelling their issues and pretending that like, oh yeah, once they've got this, they'll help us out, and then completely neglecting us, because white women and women of colour turned up to help them vote for these rights, voting rights, yet we were pushed to the back. And do you know what happened when the suffragettes did win the women's right to vote? Black women were not given that right. So we turned up, we showed up, we pulled up and helped them gain these rights, but we weren't included in the narrative. So yeah, that's my first issue with the suffragettes, and it gets worse. It gets worse, man. So the leader, or one of the leaders, said some pretty messed up stuff, which also highlighted the actual root of feminism, which is another reason why I cannot call myself a feminist. Basically, hold on, I have to get it up because it's a whole document. I screenshotted it. So this lady, Elizabeth Cady Stanton, this is what she had to say. She said, "We are moral, virtuous and intelligent, and in all respects quite equal to the proud white man himself, and yet by your laws, we are classed with idiots, lunatics, and Negroes." Our beloved suffragettes leader, she was racist. She proved that white supremacy was very present in feminism, because in that speech, she essentially said, look at how wonderful white men are. I want to be just as wonderful. How dare you class me with idiots and niggers? Like, she basically... And then when I found this out, it then made me understand the real reason why these white women wanted the right to vote. It wasn't just about women should be given the right to vote and have their voices heard. The real reason was because they were upset that black men got to vote before them. Like, that was the main intention. It was never about women should be treated equally. So understanding that, I didn't get why people can call themselves feminists when the root of it, the origin of it, the people who started this movement never had pure intentions to begin with. But yeah, I'll leave a link of the full document in the description if you want to read it yourself. But it was very disappointing, you know, because there was a time where I would call myself a feminist, but it's just the more I learn about it, the more disheartening it is, you know. So now, yeah, coming back to the modern day, modern feminism, has anything changed? No, not really. If anything, it's gotten worse, because now we're more informed, we have more resources to understand the experiences of people that are not like us, yet the mindset has not changed. In the 100-200 years, nothing has changed, which is just ridiculous. For instance, when I was searching up examples of feminists to put my thumbnail and stuff here, the majority of the faces I saw were white women, And one of them that I saw was Kim Kardashian. I know her whole feminist thing is already controversial, but this woman, the first time she showed support for the whole feminist movement, she used it to profit off of, which is not surprising. That's what the Kardashians, I can't even say their surnames, the Kardashians and Jenners do. They hop onto anything just to make a profit. And she is also someone who has culturally appropriated, which is going on to my next point. And I think I slightly mentioned it earlier about how white feminists are all like, yeah, girl power, but then turn around and disrespect black women and women of color. And this is one of the examples of it. This woman has culturally appropriated so many times, and the issue we have with cultural appropriation is that the same white black women who wear it, we are ridiculed, mocked and degraded for having these hairstyles, dressing this way, looking a certain way. Yet she has appropriated it, rebranded it, and made a profit out of it, and in the process erased the black voices that it originated from. Yet she was called a feminist, which leads to my main point of this video, which is that you cannot be racist, you cannot culturally appropriate, you also cannot be homophobic and then call yourself a feminist, because you're encouraging a system that also oppresses women. Like with the Black Lives Matter movement and marches, where were the feminists? It's funny, I saw a lot of white women who would call themselves a feminist condemning the whole movement, and I'm there like, the movement is called Black Lives Matter, right? Which includes black women. Are black women not women? But you want to say you're a feminist? Like, I don't know if you guys watch my story time about this girl who used the whole I'm an aggressive black girl stereotype at me because I tried to correct her on a Black Lives Matter issue. Yeah, like, I've seen that girl post stuff about feminism and stuff from feminist pages, and it's like, it makes no sense. You claim to be fighting for all women, yeah, you will turn around and be rude to other women and encourage the negative stereotypes that are put on other women. Like, make it make sense. Or at pride marches, where are the feminists there? Feminists are so quick to throw massive marches, shave their hair, walk around naked to express their femininity and the rights of women, yet they don't turn up when we're fighting to simply say stop killing black people, where we're fighting to say don't kill LGBTQ people. It's like, I don't understand your logic. That's why I said you're not a feminist, because most of the people I know watching this are either black or they like to call themselves allies. If you're a black woman, feminism does not speak for you, so why would you want to support that movement? And then if you're an ally, that would imply you don't see yourself as someone who is actively racist. And I'd like to assume you're not homophobic either. So by calling yourself a feminist, you're supporting a movement that encourage the oppression of these minorities. That's why I'm not a feminist and you are not a feminist. If you are, then you need to read up on the movement that you claim to support. Unless you mean in the generic, yeah, I want equal treatment of all women, but sometimes I wonder if people are genuine about that. Like, when you're campaigning for women's rights, do you think about the experiences of other women? So like with the wage gap, for instance, when people speak about the wage gap, they ignore the fact that black women get paid less than white women and Latino women get paid less than black women. But yet the forefront of this whole we want equal pay is white women. And when people talk about how feminism has encouraged the inclusion of more women in so many industries, there are now more female doctors, there are more female directors. That's wonderful, but Are there more black female directors? Are there more LGBTQ? Are there more Asian female directors? Are there more Latino female directors? Most of the time, no. In comparison to the number of white women that have managed to get to that position, black and other ethnic minorities and minorities in general have not achieved those milestones that you celebrate, which just proves that the fight was never about all women. Because oftentimes when those women do get into those industries and those high positions, they forget about the black women who are still working in low pay jobs. Overall, the common theme I've noticed is that feminists assume that all our experiences are the same. They ignore the fact that women of different races will face different experiences, women of different sexualities will face different experiences, even women of different economic standings will face different experiences. An upper class black woman will face different struggles to a lower class or working class black woman. Like in society, it's like upper class white men, then the rest of white men, upper class white women, then the rest of white women, black men, then black women, or I mean women of color in general, but in case you haven't noticed, I'm black, so I'm gonna just focus on black for this part. But in general, the gap between what a white woman faces and what any woman of color faces is very, very different. We go through worse crap. Like, you also the recent issue with Megan Thee Stallion, with what happened to her and people turning it into jokes. Where were the feminists to defend her? It was just us, the black community, on our own, saying, hold on, why are you making fun of a black woman's trauma and pain? It's like, women of colour, especially black women, go through so much worse, yet the feminists who claim to be for all women focus on the women that go through the least. I get this whole thing is not a competition or whatever, but it's a common thread for white women to always feel like they're the victim, and then when they have their issues brought forward, they forget about what other women are going through. And it's just upsetting, you know, actually, because black women have always fought for all women. Like, if you want to look at the pure, authentic definition of feminism, black women are the real feminists, because they've always been for all women. Yeah, feminism has been Christopher Columbus by white women, because that's all we see. Like, there was this event organized 1997 called the Million Women March, Million Women March, where women of color, especially black women, recognize the issues within society that was specific to women, and recognize that when it came to fighting for women, they had to consider the economic backgrounds and the sexualities and race of women in order to properly fight for their rights. So they basically started bringing forward this idea of intersectionality, which is like how things are intertwined. Like, being a woman is not just your womanhood, it's also about the other factors. Like, for me, for instance, I am black before I'm a woman, so when you're saying you're fighting for women, like, you're excluding a massive part of my identity, if that makes sense. And like, from that alone, you can see black women have always been fighting for women of all races, of all sexualities, of all economic backgrounds. Yeah, they're always put on the back burner. That is the word, back burner. which is what makes it so frustrating. In conclusion, feminism has greatly failed women of colour, LGBTQ plus women, and just non-white middle class cis women. You know, it hasn't failed, it's never been about us. But if you want to be an actual feminist, what do? The first step is to recognise this whole idea of intersectionality. I really recommend reading up on it. I will do future videos to continue on this stuff, because when I was researching for this, I came across so much, but I can't include it all in the videos. We're gonna be here a while. I feel like this has already been long enough. But just start by listening to the experiences of other women. You can't say you're for all women when you don't include all women. So listen, like, social media is so great that there are so many women speaking about their experiences. Just listen to them. Don't erase them, don't exclude them, because if you're gonna do that, then you're not really a feminist. I just wanted to end with the reiteration that if you're racist, you cannot call yourself a feminist. If you're homophobic, you cannot call yourself a feminist. And you know how with the Black Lives Matter movement, people are like, all lives cannot matter until Black lives do. I applied that idea with feminism, which is why I'm not. So until you actually start considering the experiences of all women, especially women of colour, I cannot support this movement. Anyways, I hope you guys, I can't really use enjoyed. I hope you guys found this video interesting. I went off on a tangent quite a few times, but I hope the general message point of what I'm trying to say came across. And your first step in being a true feminist is to make sure to like, subscribe and share my video and support a woman. Also, make sure to comment your thoughts on this issue. Let me know, are you a feminist? If you call yourself a feminist and I just told you you're not a feminist, please feel free to comment why you don't agree. Feel free to just comment your thoughts on this issue, because it is quite a complicated issue. Also, make sure to check out the description below, because I've got links to how you can help with what's happening in Lebanon and in Zimbabwe. Especially for me in Zimbabwe. I'm not Zimbabwean, but I'm a Black Lives Matter enthusiast, and Zimbabweans are black, so they matter as well. And if you see yourself as a feminist, then these two issues should matter to you as well, because there are women in both those countries. So yeah, make sure to check it out and do what you can. Anyway, thank you for watching. This is quite a heavy topic. I have got so much more planned. They're gonna specifically focus on Black feminism, or womanism as it is called. So make sure to subscribe. I can't even say the word subscribe, so you don't miss it. And see you in my next video. Bye bye.